The service manager looked down at the report, then back at the exhausted man standing across the counter. The words that came next felt like a death sentence. It'll cost nearly $200,000 to fix. For a moment, the world seemed to stop. The single father standing there felt the blood drain from his face. His hands trembled. His heart sank. The vehicle parked outside wasn't just a machine. It was his livelihood, his hope, and the only thing standing between his family and financial disaster. What happened next would shock everyone who heard the story. Before we continue, take a moment to like this video, comment where you're watching from, share this story with someone who believes in second chances, and subscribe to the channel if you believe kindness, determination, and never giving up can still change lives. Mark Reynolds was 38 years old, a widower, and the father of 2 young children. Life had not been kind to him. 3 years earlier, he had buried his wife after a sudden illness. The grief had nearly destroyed him. Overnight, he became both mother and father to 8-year-old Emily and 12-year-old Noah. Every morning before sunrise, Mark would wake up, prepare breakfast, help his children get ready for school, and then begin his own long workday. There were no vacations. No weekends. No breaks. The family survived because of one vehicle. A heavy-duty electric delivery truck. After losing his office job during an economic downturn, Mark had used every dollar of savings he had left to start a small delivery business. It wasn't glamorous, but it paid the bills. Local businesses hired him to transport goods around the city. The truck became his lifeline. Every payment on the mortgage, every grocery purchase, every school expense depended on that vehicle running properly. For nearly 4 years, the truck never failed him. Then one rainy Tuesday morning, disaster struck. Mark was halfway through a delivery route when warning lights suddenly exploded across the dashboard. The steering became stiff. Power dropped dramatically. Within seconds, the truck slowed to a crawl before shutting down completely on the side of the road. Cars rushed past as rain hammered against the windshield. Mark sat frozen behind the wheel. His chest tightened. He knew this wasn't good. A tow truck hauled the vehicle to the nearest authorized dealership. For 3 days, Mark waited anxiously for news. During those 72 hours, he could barely sleep. The phone finally rang on Friday afternoon. The dealership had completed its inspection. Mark immediately drove there, hoping for a manageable repair bill. Maybe a few $1,000s. Maybe $10,000. Painful, but survivable. Instead, he received a number so large it felt unreal. The technician claimed the vehicle's primary battery management system had failed catastrophically. According to their assessment, multiple battery modules would need replacement. The estimate exceeded $200,000. Mark stared at the paperwork. The amount was more than his mortgage. More than his annual income. More than he could ever hope to borrow. The service advisor spoke calmly, almost mechanically, while explaining the costs. But Mark barely heard a word. His thoughts drifted to Emily's smile. To Noah's dreams of playing college baseball. To the stack of unpaid bills waiting at home. Everything seemed to collapse at once. That evening, he sat alone at the kitchen table long after his children had gone to bed. The repair estimate lay in front of him. Rain tapped softly against the window. For the first time in years, Mark felt completely defeated. Tears filled his eyes. Not because of the money. Not because of the truck. But because he feared failing the 2 people who depended on him most. The next morning, Noah found his father sitting in the same chair. The repair estimate remained on the table. The boy quietly placed a hand on Mark's shoulder. He didn't know how to solve the problem. But that simple gesture reminded Mark of something important. Giving up wasn't an option. Not while his children still believed in him. That weekend, Mark made a decision. If he couldn't afford the repair, he would try to understand the problem himself. He wasn't an engineer. He wasn't a mechanic. But he had always been curious. Every evening after putting the kids to bed, he began researching. He watched technical videos. He downloaded service manuals. He joined online forums. He spent countless hours reading discussions from owners who had experienced similar failures. Days turned into weeks. Most information only increased his confusion. The systems were complex. The technology was intimidating. Many experts insisted that dealership diagnostics were always accurate. Yet something continued bothering him. A small detail hidden within the report. The symptoms described by the dealership didn't completely match the behavior he had experienced before the shutdown. The inconsistency nagged at him. Night after night, he kept searching. Then one evening, just after midnight, he stumbled across a post written by a retired electrical engineer. The post described a nearly identical situation. Warning lights. Power loss. Complete shutdown. Massive repair estimate. The engineer eventually discovered that the actual problem wasn't the battery pack at all. It was a tiny sensor component that had failed and triggered a cascade of misleading error codes. The replacement part cost less than $20. Mark's heart began racing. Could it really be that simple? He dug deeper. More stories appeared. Different owners. Different cities. Same symptoms. Same tiny component. The next morning, Mark ordered the part online. The total cost, including shipping, came to $14. When the package arrived several days later, it looked almost ridiculous. After staring at a $200,000 estimate, he now held a component smaller than his palm. The odds felt impossible. Still, he had nothing to lose. A friend allowed him to use a small garage over the weekend. Mark carefully followed technical instructions he had studied for weeks. Hour after hour, he worked methodically. Every connection was checked. Every step was verified. His hands shook from nervousness. The entire future of his family seemed attached to that tiny piece of plastic and circuitry. As the sun began setting, the installation was complete. The moment of truth had arrived. Mark climbed into the driver's seat. Silence filled the garage. He inserted the key, took a deep breath, and turned it. For one terrifying second, nothing happened. Then the dashboard illuminated normally. No warning lights. No alarms. No errors. The systems initialized perfectly. The truck came to life. Mark sat frozen, unable to believe what he was seeing. He restarted it again. And again. The results were identical. Everything worked. The truck was healthy. The fault had vanished completely. A repair that supposedly required over $200,000 had been solved with a $14 part. Mark stepped out of the vehicle and simply stood there. The emotions hit him all at once. Relief. Disbelief. Gratitude. Exhaustion. Months of fear suddenly evaporated. For the first time in weeks, he smiled. A genuine smile. When he returned home that night, Emily and Noah ran outside to greet him. The truck's familiar sound filled the driveway. The children immediately knew something had changed. Their father looked different. Lighter. Hopeful. The burden he had carried for so long was finally gone. Life slowly returned to normal. Deliveries resumed. Bills were paid. The business recovered. But the story didn't end there. Mark couldn't stop thinking about how many people might be facing similar situations. How many families had accepted devastating repair bills because they believed there was no alternative. How many dreams had been crushed by incorrect diagnoses. Instead of moving on, he began sharing his experience online. At first, only a handful of people noticed. Then hundreds. Then thousands. His story spread through forums and social media groups. Messages arrived from all over the country. Some thanked him for inspiring them to seek second opinions. Others reported discovering small issues behind massive repair estimates. Many simply appreciated the reminder that persistence matters. One message stood out. A struggling father from another state explained that Mark's story had saved him from selling his home after receiving a repair estimate he couldn't afford. After researching further, he found the actual problem was minor. Reading that message brought tears to Mark's eyes. Because he understood exactly what that man had felt. The fear. The hopelessness. The desperation. And the overwhelming relief when hope finally returned. Years later, Mark would often reflect on that difficult chapter. People assumed the story was about saving money. But to him, it wasn't. It was about refusing to surrender when everything seemed impossible. It was about believing there might be another answer. It was about the quiet strength that ordinary people discover when their families depend on them. Most importantly, it was about love. The love of a father who couldn't afford to quit. The love that kept him researching after midnight. The love that pushed him forward when logic said to give up. The love that transformed a $14 part into something priceless. Before we reach the end of this story, I have a special request. Please comment below with the words, "Never give up." Your comment may encourage someone reading through the comments who is facing their own impossible situation right now. Today, Mark's truck is still running. His business continues to grow. Emily dreams of becoming a teacher. Noah is pursuing his athletic goals. Life isn't perfect. It never is. But every time Mark starts that vehicle, he remembers the day the world told him he was finished. And the day he proved it wrong. Sometimes the biggest obstacles in life aren't overcome by money, power, or luck. Sometimes they're overcome by patience, determination, and the courage to keep searching for answers. A $14 part didn't just fix a truck. It restored a father's hope. And hope, once restored, can change everything. If this story touched your heart, please take a moment to like the video, share it with friends and family, subscribe to the channel, and leave a comment below. Your support helps these inspiring stories reach people who may need hope today. Remember, no matter how impossible your situation looks right now, never underestimate the power of persistence. Sometimes the solution you're searching for is much closer than you think. And sometimes, the smallest thing can save the biggest dream. The end.